Hi there, my name is Austinite. I'm a technical advisor with AgSpire. I'm going to talk a little bit about nutrient management. And when we talk about nutrient management, everything we do on the farm or ranch revolves around moving nutrients, whether that be harvesting nutrients in the form of forages to the feedlot, or if that's bringing cows or other livestock to the pasture or to cover crops to graze. Either way, we're moving those nutrients into an animal and then back onto the land. And that's why nutrient management is super important. It's also important economically. Between 20 and 45% of the cost to raise crops is the cost of nutrient inputs. And so when we think about can we reduce those inputs, that's going to increase the efficiency and resiliency of the operation. The University of Minnesota study stated that those farms that were better able to track and reduce their inputs when it comes to nutrients were more profitable and more resilient for the long term, increasing the longevity of those operations, which is ultimately the goal of each of our operations to pass it down to the next generation. When we look at nutrient management, a lot of folks harp on the 4 R's: the right place, right rate, right source, and right time, which is a great base for trying to figure out what we're doing and what we're putting into our systems. I do want to dig more into that and think about it a little bit more cyclically instead of this linear pathway that we, especially as row crop farmers, think of the way we produce crops, right? We look at, okay, our crops take out this much nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, so we need to put that much back in, and this is the products we're using. It's all commercial fertilizer. If we think about that in a different way, of how do we take what we put in the system and recycle it like we do with plastics or other things in everyday life? How do we take those nutrients and utilize those time after time, or even better, bring in nutrients without having to directly pay for them as a commercial fertilizer? One of those ways you can do that, the biggest thing you can do is incorporate livestock on your operation. So being able to, in an ideal scenario, raise feed or forage for those, specifically in this sense, cattle or other livestock, and have those livestock brought to the forage to then be grazed. That way you are not having, for one, the cost of having to harvest and transport this forage, and you're also getting the benefit of that livestock being on the land. They're getting the forage straight from where it was grown. They're leaving behind nutrients. They're stratifying the nutrients from when they're moving around on the land itself, and overall just better for soil health, for your bottom line. But I understand that that's not realistic for every single field, every single operation. There's fencing, which if you're looking for opportunities for cost share on fencing, certainly let AgSpire know and we can help you get in a program and get opportunities for that. But there's also other considerations when it comes to weather, or specifically like water, rain, snow, etc., that have a big impact on whether or not you can get good grazing out of livestock. Specifically talking about grazing corn stalks or pastures. The second thing to really think about that cyclical nature of nutrient management is incorporating cover crops. I know we talk a lot about cover crops and reducing soil erosion, which is certainly a key benefit, but they have so much more to offer when it comes to not only the soil health benefits with releasing certain nutrients from the soil based off of your mix of cover crops, but also, again, that feed or forage production that you can get out of land that typically would be in corn stalks or other row crops that you could then take advantage of in the seasons where you're not growing anything, to grow forages for healthier livestock and for healthier soil. When you have a nice diverse mix of cover crops, including legumes for that nitrogen credit, but You can also get other credits and nutrients brought out from the soil from these very diverse mixes, especially with that livestock incorporation. So, thinking about the ability to have those two things add nutrients to the soil, I know one of the big questions is going to be, okay, but how do I know how much is there? Because when you add anhydrous or urea or UAN, you know what you're putting on and you know roughly what's available. And this is where soil testing comes into play. Whether you're testing strictly the chemical properties of soil, you can make it really simple, test NPK, few microbes, maybe zinc, sulfur, etc. That is something you can do, or you can go deeper into it and test the soil health, test microbial activity, etc. But the bottom line being, if you're able to go out and test that soil, you'll be able to make a better decision on what's actually out there and what inputs you do still need to add. Typically when we are livestock grazing, if we're growing, say, corn silage or wheat or other grains, or even for forage, you're typically going to need additional nitrogen that you're not going to get supplied via your livestock. So there will be some outside inputs, but the ultimate idea is that with the incorporation of cover crops for forage, livestock integration where possible, you're going to be able to reduce those nutrient applications, which will reduce your cost overall and will allow you to have healthier soil and healthier animals. If you're interested to talk a little bit more about this with one of our technical advisors, please reach out to the AgSpire team, whether it be at agspire.com or calling one of our technical advisors directly.